The Galactic Empire stretched across thousands of star systems, a monolithic power that had gone unchallenged for centuries. They considered themselves the arbiters of order, the rightful rulers of the galaxy. Other species either submitted or were erased. Among them, humanity was seen as a trivial anomaly, a small, isolated death world species relegated to the edges of galactic maps. Their expansion into nearby territories had been tolerated only because the Empire viewed them as insignificant, a mere curiosity. When humans began establishing colonies near Imperial borders, the Empire's response was swift. A formal demand for submission was sent, expecting immediate capitulation. Instead, the humans requested a diplomatic summit. The Empire found this laughable but agreed, seeing an opportunity to publicly humiliate a species they saw as weak. The humans sent a single diplomat, Selene Voss. She arrived alone without escorts aboard a lightly armed ship. To the Empire, this was confirmation of humanity's frailty. Selene disembarked with calm precision, her posture relaxed, her face unreadable. Imperial officials interpreted her serenity as naivety. High Commander Vareth, a towering figure among his people, greeted her with thinly veiled contempt. His opening statement dismissed humanity's territorial claims and outlined the conditions for their immediate subjugation. Selene listened, her gaze steady, her expression unflinching. When she spoke, her voice was measured, almost disarmingly calm. She stated that humanity would not yield any territory, nor would they accept imperial oversight. The room stilled at her audacity. Vareth laughed, assuming she did not understand the gravity of the situation. Imperial delegates, sensing weakness, took turns belittling her. They questioned humanity's place in galactic affairs, mocked their limited reach, and compared their so-called fleets to scavenger vessels. Selene responded to each insult with clinical precision, her words sharp, her logic unassailable. Vareth ordered a small demonstration of force to unsettle her. Imperial guards accidentally breached the conference perimeter, weapons drawn. Selene, unarmed, moved with unexpected speed and efficiency, disarming one guard and disabling another with minimal effort. She returned to her seat unshaken. As the guard scrambled to recover, the onlookers, particularly diplomats from neutral species, took notice. Deathworlders were known to be physically resilient, but Selene's control, her economy of movement, suggested lethal training. Vareth dismissed the incident as trivial, though doubt flickered behind his hardened exterior. Selene leaned forward slightly, her voice dropping to a level that demanded attention. She warned them that attacking a human diplomat was not just an offense against her. It was a declaration of war against a species that did not forgive. Vareth smirked, seeing no visible threat. He authorized the subordinates to proceed with a covert operation. Selene's ship would be seized under the guise of a security inspection. Her safe passage would be regrettably compromised. As Selene departed the hall, other species representatives whispered among themselves. Some questioned whether the Empire truly understood what it was provoking. Others debated whether humanity's calm facade masked something far more dangerous. Selene returned to her ship, fully aware of the trap set for her. The security inspection began with procedural formalities, but the moment Imperial agents boarded, they revealed their true intent. Weapons were drawn, orders barked, and Selene was escorted under armed guard. She did not resist. She walked where they directed, her hands relaxed at her sides. They brought her to a holding chamber, assuming her compliance signaled surrender. What they failed to recognize was that Selene's ship, though lightly armed, was equipped with redundant systems, concealed protocols, and fail-safe measures designed by humans who expected betrayal. Selene activated a manual override from a concealed panel within her personal comm device. The ship's internal security systems responded instantly, disabling gravity in localized corridors and sealing blast doors to isolate her captors. In zero gravity, she maneuvered with practiced ease, using the environment to disarm and incapacitate the Imperial soldiers one by one. Her escape was not loud. It was not frantic. It was methodical, efficient, and terrifying in its precision. Within minutes, she regained control of the ship and transmitted a signal toward human space. The message was simple: diplomatic immunity violated. Situation escalated. Proceeding to next protocol. The Empire's command, unaware of her successful escape, declared the operation a victory. They believed her detained, her ship impounded. Vareth prepared a statement to the Galactic Council, intending to use the incident to further humiliate humanity. When Selene re-entered the diplomatic hall unannounced, the room descended into silence. Vareth's shock was poorly masked. His aides scrambled, their internal communications a flurry of panic as they realized the ship they thought secured had left orbit under Selene's command. Selene approached the central dais without invitation, her steps unhurried. She calmly placed a data crystal on the table before Vareth, containing records of the Empire's attempted abduction, audio logs, and security feeds from the ship. Evidence of their violation was now irrefutable. She addressed the council, her tone devoid of rage but laced with certainty. Humanity would not tolerate violations of diplomatic conduct. Retaliation was inevitable. She offered the Empire a singular opportunity to de-escalate, a chance to admit fault and negotiate in good faith. Vareth, cornered and desperate to maintain his image, dismissed her warning. He claimed the evidence was fabricated, that the Empire would never fear a solitary diplomat or a fragile species. Selene merely nodded, as if she expected this. She reminded the room that the Empire had not attacked a soldier, a warship, or fleet. They had attacked a diplomat, a representative of Earth's most restrained face. You have seen our patience. You have not seen our wrath. Vareth laughed, but the sound was brittle. His subordinates did not join him. Some stared at Selene, others at the data crystal, calculating the potential consequences. Diplomats from other species quietly adjusted their stances, some leaning away from Vareth's position, others signaling their aides to initiate contingency talks with Earth. Selene turned and departed, leaving the crystal on the table. The weight of her words lingered in the silence that followed. Imperial leadership scrambled to regain narrative control, but cracks in their authority had already begun to form. Neutral factions started requesting formal dialogues with human envoys, subtly distancing themselves from the Empire's aggressive stance. Whispers spread that humanity had allowed itself to be underestimated for too long, that the lone diplomat was not a miscalculation, but a deliberate test. Selene's transmission reached Earth well before she returned to human space. Military command acknowledged her message, activating protocols that had been dormant, waiting for such a violation. The Empire's high command prepared for a brief, symbolic show of force from humans. They assumed a small patrol would arrive, perhaps a token fleet meant to posture before retreating under pressure. The Empire's high command celebrated prematurely, believing they had humiliated humanity by detaining their lone diplomat. They failed to comprehend that Selene's return to the diplomatic hall was not a desperate plea, but a final warning. Her calm departure should have triggered alarms. Instead, it was dismissed as bravado. Vareth ordered the Imperial fleet to advance toward human border colonies, expecting little resistance. Intelligence suggested human ships were lightly armed and strategically naive. The Empire deployed a sizable fleet to intercept any incoming human response, preparing to enforce total submission. Within hours, human warships appeared at the edge of Imperial territory. Unlike the clunky, outdated vessels the Empire expected, these ships were fast, angular, and unlike any other seen in the galaxy. They executed micro-jumps with surgical precision, positioning themselves directly in the Empire's critical supply lanes. Imperial commanders assumed the humans would negotiate under pressure. Instead, the human fleet severed key trade routes without firing a single shot. They captured logistical hubs with precision raids, their boarding parties operating with efficiency beyond Imperial comprehension. The humans did not posture. They did not threaten. They acted decisively. Vareth ordered an immediate confrontation. The Imperial fleet engaged the humans near the Zelthar corridor, expecting a conventional battle. Human ships employed tactics the Empire had never encountered. They used feints and precision strikes, their formations shifting fluidly, their maneuvers unconstrained by the rigid doctrines the Empire held sacred. Communications intercepted during the battle revealed something the Empire found deeply unsettling. Human fleet captains spoke with unnerving calm, even when under heavy fire. They treated combat like a routine operation, casually discussing enemy weaknesses, prioritizing targets with clinical detachment. The Empire's numerical superiority proved meaningless. Within the first engagement, human ships disabled several Imperial cruisers with surgical strikes to critical systems. The Empire's formations collapsed as human vessels exploited weaknesses in their supply lines and tactical doctrines. Vareth escalated, deploying dreadnoughts to crush the human fleet. But humanity had already prepared for such escalation. Their ships coordinated electromagnetic attacks, scrambling Imperial targeting systems. Drones with autonomous subroutines swarmed the larger Imperial ships, delivering concentrated strikes to engines and shield generators. Human boarding parties demonstrated unmatched ferocity and adaptability. Imperial Marines found themselves overwhelmed by soldiers who used improvised tools, environmental hazards, and gravity manipulation to control engagements. Entire decks were lost to human forces who appear to thrive in chaos. Within days, the Empire's forward fleets were decimated. Vareth, unwilling to concede defeat, ordered retaliatory strikes on human colonies. Imperial fleets approached what they believed were undefended outposts, only to encounter automated defense grids and hidden strike groups that had anticipated their arrival. Humanity's mastery of predictive warfare stunned Imperial tacticians. Every move the Empire made had seemingly been anticipated. Human forces allowed Imperial fleets to penetrate defenses, only to trap them in kill zones meticulously prepared in advance. Interrogations of captured Imperial officers revealed their disbelief. They had been trained to view humans as backward, disorganized, and technologically inferior. The reality was the opposite. Humanity's smaller size and perceived insignificance had been their camouflage. Selene returned to the diplomatic table as battles raged across multiple fronts. She presented Vareth with updated territorial maps, now showing human control over vast sectors once under Imperial dominion. She offered terms. The Empire would cede recently contested territories, issue a formal apology, and agree to a 10-year non-aggression pact. Vareth rejected the terms, branding humanity as a dangerous upstart species that must be crushed entirely. His refusal triggered humanity's next response. Within hours, human fleets executed simultaneous strikes against Imperial shipyards, communication hubs, and energy relays. The speed and coordination of the attacks left the Empire paralyzed. Empire-wide communication networks collapsed. Shipyards burned. Supply routes vanished. Entire sectors fell silent as human forces disabled their infrastructure without protracted battles. Human cybernetic units infiltrated the Empire's data systems, broadcasting real-time footage of Imperial defeats to demoralize enemy forces. Imperial commanders attempted to regroup, but human forces operated with a fluidity the Empire could not match. They shifted attack vectors rapidly, exploiting every hesitation, every gap in defense. Imperial fleets often arrived at target coordinates to find nothing but debris and the echoes of human transmission logs, taunting them with calm, calculated messages. Selene reappeared at a secondary diplomatic summit, this time requested by neutral factions. Vareth was notably absent, his credibility eroded. His replacement, Commander Lathan, approached the negotiations with caution, but still harbored the belief that the Empire could outlast the humans. Selene presented him with another offer. Humanity would halt its advance, withdraw from several captured sectors, and establish demilitarized zones in exchange for a permanent diplomatic seat and recognition of human territorial claims. Commander Lathan hesitated, calculating the long-term cost of continued resistance. He demanded time to consult with his superiors. Selene granted him 2 days. During those 2 days, human forces captured 2 additional shipyards, eliminated a significant Imperial convoy, and demonstrated the ability to disable capital ships remotely using newly deployed electromagnetic pulses. When Lathan returned to the table, his confidence had eroded. Lathan demanded to know how humanity had developed such advanced tactics in isolation. Selene's response was simple. Humanity had always prepared for war. They had not advertised their capabilities. They had never needed to until provoked. Lathan accused her of orchestrating the entire conflict to force the Empire into submission. Selene denied the accusation, stating that humanity preferred peaceful coexistence, but would never tolerate threats or violations of diplomatic sanctity. The Empire chose this path. As Lathan grappled with the enormity of his position, Selene delivered a final message. Humanity's strength was not in numbers, nor solely in technology, but in their relentless adaptability. The Empire had trained for centuries against predictable enemies. Humans were not predictable. Meanwhile, reports flooded Imperial command. Human sleeper fleets had emerged near core Imperial worlds. Their stealth capabilities had bypassed detection systems, positioning them within striking distance of critical assets. The Empire's outer defenses had been bypassed entirely. The Empire's reluctant acceptance of humanity's terms did not bring the expected peace. While official documents were signed, factions within the Empire seethed at the humiliation. They viewed the diplomatic outcome as temporary, a pause before they could reassert dominance. Quietly, they assembled a coalition of hardliners determined to erase the stain of defeat. Among them, rogue admirals plotted a final, decisive strike against human colonies, believing a surprise attack would force humanity into total submission. The assault came swiftly. Imperial warships bypassed border checkpoints using experimental slipstream drives, emerging deep within human-controlled space. Their target was a vital human logistics hub, a colony that supplied multiple sectors. The Empire believed this would cripple human momentum and force immediate concessions. The colony's defenses appeared minimal, but within minutes of the attack, the Empire realized they had fallen into a trap. The colony had been deliberately left vulnerable to bait such aggression. Hidden human fleets emerged from the planet's shadow, surrounding the attackers with precision. Automated defense grids activated, slicing through the rogue fleet with relentless accuracy. The Imperial admirals pleaded for reinforcements, but their distress signals were intercepted and jammed. Human forces systematically dismantled the fleet, offering no avenue for retreat. It became clear that humanity had anticipated this betrayal and had prepared every variable. Within hours, the attacking fleet was annihilated. News of the failed assault spread rapidly. Human leadership released intercepted communications that exposed the involvement of senior Imperial commanders in orchestrating the attack. The Empire's leadership, already fractured, now faced internal collapse. Loyalist factions struggled to maintain order as their credibility disintegrated. Selene addressed the Galactic Council one final time, her message transmitted across the known galaxy. She explained that humanity had extended every opportunity for peace. The Empire's repeated violations, despite formal agreements, demonstrated a willful refusal to adapt. She stated plainly that humanity would no longer offer warnings. Future hostilities would be met with overwhelming, unrestrained force. Human fleets mobilized across multiple fronts, advancing into key Imperial sectors with alarming speed. The assaults were surgical, targeting energy grids, shipyards, and communication nexuses. Humanity's gravity-based weaponry, previously unseen on large scales, was deployed openly. Entire enemy fleets were crushed under artificial gravitational fields, bypassing shields and hull integrity. Imperial defenses crumbled under the weight of humanity's relentless advance. Psychological warfare intensified as human transmissions flooded Imperial channels, calmly narrating the progress of each campaign, offering the Empire's soldiers a choice to surrender or face complete annihilation. The Empire's remaining commanders attempted to consolidate forces near their core worlds, believing they could hold a defensive perimeter. Humanity anticipated this and deployed stealth fleets that bypassed outer defenses entirely, appearing within striking distance of the Empire's capital systems. The collapse was swift. Human cybernetic infiltration shut down critical planetary defense systems. Gravity weapons immobilized offensive fleets. Human boarding teams captured orbital stations without firing a shot, offering Imperial crews the option of evacuation or peaceful handover. Faced with inevitable defeat, surviving Imperial leaders convened in desperation. Some advocated for unconditional surrender, others for suicidal resistance. Selene delivered a final offer: complete demilitarization of Imperial core sectors, formal reparations, and immediate dismantling of the factions responsible for the rogue assault. Failure to comply would result in the erasure of their homeworlds. The Galactic Council, now heavily influenced by species aligned with humanity, pressured the Empire to accept. Neutral species that had once feared the Empire now openly supported human-led peace enforcement. Humanity's reputation had shifted from a curiosity to an undeniable galactic power. The Empire capitulated. Core sectors were demilitarized. Key political leaders were deposed and replaced with provisional governments under the watch of neutral overseers approved by humanity. Reparations began immediately, not in material wealth, but in concessions of key trade routes and political influence. Selene, throughout the proceedings, maintained her consistent posture of calm precision. She emphasized that humanity's goal was never conquest. They sought stability, respect, and security for their species. She reminded the Council that attacking a diplomat had triggered the sequence of events. Humanity had offered restraint repeatedly, and each time the Empire had misinterpreted patience for weakness. The remaining Imperial commanders demanded to know why humanity had not simply destroyed the Empire outright. Selene answered without hesitation. Humanity did not wage war to exterminate. They waged war to ensure they would never again need to prove their resolve. Their restraint was a choice, not a limitation. Galactic scholars began to reevaluate humanity's history, uncovering patterns that had been overlooked. Human conflicts throughout their own history were not signs of barbarism, but evidence of their ability to endure, adapt, and prevail against insurmountable odds. Their wars forged a species capable of resilience beyond comprehension. Selene's departure from the Council signaled the end of the formal conflict, but the ripple effects continued. New alliances formed around humanity. Former Imperial client species shifted allegiances. Trade routes that had once been monopolized by the Empire now flowed through human-controlled sectors. Humanity's influence expanded not through colonization, but through trust and reliable enforcement of agreements. Despite their victory, humanity withdrew many of their fleets to core territories, maintaining only minimal patrols in the newly acquired regions. Their message was clear. Humanity did not desire empire. They desired balance, security, and the assurance that their diplomats would never again be seen as expendable. Selene's legend grew. She became a symbol not just of humanity's strength, but of its restraint. She was known across the galaxy as a diplomat who carried no weapon but left entire fleets shattered in her wake. Alien scholars debated whether she had been specifically chosen for this mission because of her capacity for psychological warfare and calculated escalation. The few who studied the transmission she left behind noted the consistency of her tone. Calm, measured, never driven by emotion. Even at the height of conflict, she spoke as though humanity's victory was not a question of if, but when.